In the silence of forgotten temples and the dust of crumbling scriptures lies a mystery most people never question. Why were so many gods erased from history? Across ancient civilizations, humanity worshipped a multitude of deities: storm bringers, underworld guardians, fertility mothers, and celestial kings. Yet, today, their names are absent from prayers, their images shattered, their worship forbidden. Were these divine figures merely abandoned as cultures faded? Or were they deliberately banned, their power too threatening for the world we live in now? When you peel back the layers of official history, you find something unsettling. Myths were not just stories, they were codes, repositories of spiritual technology. These deities embodied archetypes, forces of consciousness, gateways to hidden dimensions of the human mind and spirit. To erase them was not just to erase gods, but to erase access to certain truths about who we are and what we could become. But why? What danger could forgotten gods pose to modern religion, or to the systems that govern society? Were they symbols of power too primal to control? Did they offer humanity a path to freedom? Freedom that organized institutions could not allow. In this documentary, we will journey into the anatomy of religious erasure, the forgotten deities cast into shadow, the hidden motives that outlawed their worship, and the untold spiritual technologies buried with them. What you're about to hear is not entertainment, it is revelation. If there is still a living spark within you, you will feel it. You may even begin to remember the truths your ancestors once knew. Welcome to Esoteric Glyph, where ancient wisdom and forbidden knowledge come alive. Before we dive deeper, if you are drawn to mysteries that most fear to touch, subscribe now and join this circle of seekers. Because what you are about to learn could change the way you see religion, history, and even yourself. Long before the rise of monotheism, the ancient world pulsed with divine plurality. Mesopotamia had Enlil and Inanna, gods of storm and fertility. Egypt venerated Osiris, Isis, and Ra as the cycle of death, rebirth, and cosmic order. The Greeks looked to Zeus, Athena, and Hades, while the Norse spoke of Odin, Freya, and Thor. Each deity was not just a figure of worship. They were living archetypes, embodiments of forces that shaped human consciousness and natural reality. To the ancients, these gods were not out there in the heavens, but within us. Ares, the spirit of war, could stir in a soldier's blood. Aphrodite, goddess of love and desire, whispered in the heart. The pantheon was the mirror of the human psyche itself, a vast constellation of energies interwoven with nature, the cosmos, and the collective soul. Yet something changed. As empires expanded and spiritual traditions consolidated, the vast tapestry of gods was cut down, simplified, and in many cases banned outright. In Babylon, entire deities were absorbed or erased when conquerors rose to power. In Rome, the imperial cult demanded loyalty to Caesar over the older gods. With the rise of Christianity and later Islam, countless deities were recast as demons, their temples destroyed, their rituals outlawed. Why? On the surface, this was about order, unity, and control. A single god, a single authority, was far easier to manage than 1,000 competing powers. But beneath this political motive lies a deeper esoteric truth. Forgotten gods represented something dangerous: divine multiplicity. They offered access to archetypes and spiritual energies that could not be easily contained. Philosophically, these deities pointed to the truth that human consciousness is not singular, but many-layered. The psyche is a pantheon in itself, filled with forces that clash, harmonize, and evolve. To suppress the old gods was, in a sense, to suppress humanity's recognition of its inner complexity. To ban the deities was to domesticate the human spirit, to deny us the knowledge that we are not limited beings, but reflections of cosmic forces vast beyond comprehension. This is why ancient mystery schools guarded their teachings in secrecy. They knew that gods were not merely myths, but keys to transformation, to power, to freedom. And freedom, in every age, has always been the greatest heresy. The question remains, were these gods truly destroyed, or merely hidden, waiting for those who seek to remember? Imagine standing in the shadow of an ancient temple. The walls are carved with symbols of gods no modern priest dares mention. Faces with multiple eyes, serpent-headed guardians, winged beings radiating fire. These were once divine figures commanding fear and devotion. Yet today they are monsters and myths, their names whispered only in archaeology or occult circles. How did such powerful gods vanish? The answer lies in the anatomy of religious consolidation. When a new religion rises, it does not appear from nothing. it absorbs, transforms, and eliminates what came before. The easiest way to erase an older deity was not to destroy them outright, but to rebrand them. A goddess of fertility becomes a demon of lust. A god of wisdom becomes a fallen angel. A lord of storms is recast as a devil bringing chaos. In one stroke, entire civilizations were told, "These gods you once honored are now your enemies." But there is more at work than politics. To truly understand why forgotten deities were banned, we must see them for what they were: archetypal gateways. Each god was not merely a personality but a force, an aspect of consciousness, an access point to hidden power. Take Inanna, the Sumerian goddess of love and war. She embodied paradox, beauty and destruction, fertility and chaos. To worship her was to confront the duality within oneself. But duality is dangerous in systems that demand obedience, for it teaches that truth is not singular. It empowers the individual to balance opposing forces, rather than bow to a single narrative. Or consider Pan, the wild Greek god of nature. His presence shattered the illusion of human superiority. To encounter Pan was to remember that we are not masters of the earth, but part of its untamed soul. When Christianity spread, Pan's horns and hooves were transmuted into the image of the devil himself. Nature's power had to be demonized, for it threatened the order of civilization. This pattern repeats endlessly. A Shiva, god of destruction and rebirth, feared by colonial missionaries as a devil figure. Hecate, goddess of thresholds and witchcraft, demonized as a patroness of sorcery. Baal, worshipped across the Levant, turned into the very symbol of false idols. The banning of these deities was not only a religious act, but a psychic coup. By declaring the gods dangerous, authorities severed humanity's relationship with the archetypes they represented. Imagine locking away pieces of your own soul, your passion, your wildness, your courage, your mystery, and being told to forget they ever existed. This is what banning the gods truly meant: a fragmentation of human consciousness. But like embers hidden beneath ashes, these deities have never truly died. They linger in language, in folklore, in dreams. They survive in the symbols we barely notice: serpents on medical staffs, winged lions in coats of arms, horned masks at carnivals. The gods live on, just beneath the surface, reminding us of what was taken. The real question is, why was this erasure so necessary? Was it truly to protect humanity from chaos, or to protect the powerful from humanity awakening? History tells us the gods were erased for political and religious order. But esoteric traditions whisper something more unsettling. Some gods were banned because they opened doors humanity was not meant to open. In every ancient civilization, certain deities were not merely protectors or rulers. They were threshold keepers. They governed the spaces between life and death, between dream and waking, between mortal and divine. To invoke them was not only to pray, it was to risk crossing into states of consciousness where ordinary reality dissolves. Consider Hecate, goddess of crossroads. To her devotees, she offered visions, guidance, and mastery of liminal spaces. But to rulers, a goddess who gave ordinary people access to secret knowledge was dangerous. For if individuals could speak to spirits, interpret dreams, and divine the future, what need would they have for priests or kings? Hecate was not erased because she was false, but because she was too true. Or look to Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent of Mesoamerica. He symbolized knowledge, wind, and transformation, a god who brought civilization, writing, and calendar systems. Yet his worship also implied that wisdom could come directly from divine communion, bypassing institutions of control. When colonizers arrived, Quetzalcoatl was reframed as a pagan idol, his temples destroyed. But the symbolism of the feathered serpent, uniting the bird of the sky with the serpent of the earth, still whispers of a power far beyond duality. Here lies the paradox. Forgotten gods were not always banned because they were evil, but because they were too liberating. They shattered the illusion of separation between human and divine. They offered power not in a distant heaven, but in the beating heart of the initiate. Yet, there is another possibility. Some gods were banned not by human decision alone, but by cosmic necessity. Certain deities embodied forces so primal, chaos, destruction, the void, that their worship risked destabilizing societies unprepared to integrate them. Tiamat, the Babylonian chaos serpent, was slain by Marduk to establish cosmic order. Was this simply myth? Or was it a recognition that some forces, if left unchecked, could unravel the very fabric of civilization? Esoteric philosophers argue that humanity, at certain stages of development, is shielded from powers it cannot yet wield responsibly. Just as a child cannot safely handle fire, societies may not yet be ready to embrace the full force of forgotten gods. In this view, their banning was not only political but karmic, an act of cosmic guardianship. Still, fragments remain. The gods banned from temples slip into folklore, fairy tales, and symbols. They appear as tricksters, demons, or shadows, waiting for humanity to evolve enough to meet them again with wisdom rather than fear. The great question that lingers is this: were the forgotten gods erased to protect humanity from themselves, or to protect rulers from a humanity that might awaken? Knowledge without transformation is just another form of entertainment. To truly honor the forgotten gods, we must ask, how does this matter for us, here now in the modern world? The first step is to realize that the pantheon never truly disappeared. The gods that were banned, erased, or demonized still live within the architecture of the human psyche. They are impulses, emotions, and archetypes moving through us each day. To remember them is not to return to ancient temples, but to awaken those hidden aspects of the self. 1. Recognize the archetypes within you. The next time you feel anger rising, instead of labeling it as sin or weakness, ask, which forgotten god is stirring within me? When you feel a sudden burst of creativity, passion, or rebellion, recognize it as the whisper of a silenced archetype. This practice transforms raw emotion into sacred presence. It is no longer just anger or just desire, but a signal of something ancient and powerful seeking expression. 2. Reclaim the symbolic language. Forgotten gods speak in symbols. The serpent, once demonized, is not only temptation, it is also wisdom, shedding its skin to reveal rebirth. The horned figure is not always devilish, it is nature's wild soul, untamed and alive. By meditating on these symbols, by studying their original meanings, you begin to unlock the deeper codes of your own consciousness. 3. Practice rituals of remembrance. You do not need an altar of stone to honor forgotten deities. Light a candle and dedicate it to the hidden powers within yourself. Journal with the question, what archetype am I ignoring? Dream practices are especially powerful. Before sleep, ask a forgotten god to reveal itself in symbolic form. Dreams were, after all, one of the oldest temples. 4. Break the chains of manufactured consensus. The banning of gods was, at its core, about control. To honor them now is to resist the automation of thought. Practice silence from media, fast from constant consumption, and create space for your own inner voice to speak. The forgotten deities live not in noise, but in the quiet spaces where intuition and imagination awaken. 5. Live in polarity, not singularity. Most modern systems train us to think in binaries, good versus evil, true versus false. But the forgotten gods remind us that divinity is paradox. Love and war, chaos and order, creation and destruction, they coexist. To embody this wisdom is to live more fully human, no longer denying half of your soul. The transformation begins when you stop seeing forgotten gods as dusty relics of history and start recognizing them as living currents of energy that flow through you, shaping your thoughts, emotions, and choices. By reclaiming them, you are reclaiming your wholeness. And remember, this work is not about worshiping statues or reviving dogmas. It is about awakening the ancient temple within, the pantheon of your own being. The gods were not truly destroyed, they were hidden. Their temples may lie in ruins, their names branded as demons, but their essence has never left us. They live in our stories, in our symbols, in our instincts, and most importantly, in the uncharted territories of our own consciousness. To say they were banned from modern religion is to say that humanity was denied a fuller map of itself. For when you erase the gods of wildness, chaos, and mystery, you erase the parts of the human soul that refuse to be tamed. You leave behind only a fragment of what we are meant to be. But fragments can be restored. Memory can return. Each of us holds within our psyche the entire pantheon of archetypes, waiting to be awakened. To honor the forgotten gods is not to bow before idols. It is to reclaim the lost pieces of ourselves. So ask yourself, what god within me has been silenced? What force have I been taught to fear, when in truth it is my key to wholeness? This is the work of remembrance. This is the hidden path, the restoration of the ancient within the modern. You are alive, but are you awake? The choice is yours. If these revelations stirred something within you, if you feel the spark of remembrance, do not let it fade. Subscribe to Esoteric Glyph and step deeper into the mysteries that most fear to touch. Share this with those who are ready, and let the whispers of forgotten gods be heard once again. Because perhaps the greatest secret of all is this: the gods were never lost. We were.